A bank in Beijing just quietly changed a rule nobody outside the trading floor was supposed to notice. No press conference, no headlines splashed across financial television, just a memo, some new paperwork, and a deadline, July 24th. Somewhere between now and that date, something is supposed to happen inside China's gold market. And depending on who you ask, it's either a routine compliance update or the first crack in a wall that Western traders have leaned on for 50 years. Here's the strange part. Nobody agrees on which one it is. If you're interested in money, investing, gold, silver, and protecting your financial future, go ahead and subscribe to Money Insights and like this video. Because every single week, we break down the biggest financial stories happening right now in plain, simple English. No jargon, no noise, just what you actually need to know. Now, let's get back to July 24th, because to understand why this date matters, you have to understand what China has already been doing, quietly, for 20 months in a row. Picture a person who never tells you their plans, but every single month, without fail, they show up and buy the same thing. Not a lot at once. Never enough to spook anyone. Just consistent, predictable, patient. That's the People's Bank of China. For 20 straight months, it has added gold to its vaults. Not once has it skipped a month. In June alone, it added roughly 480,000 ounces, close to 15 metric tons, the single biggest monthly addition since October of 2023. That pushed China's official gold holdings to about 75.44 million ounces, or 2,346 tons. Here's where it gets strange. China did this while gold prices were falling, not rising, falling. Spot gold tumbled more than 11% in June, one of its worst monthly drops since 2008. Most ordinary investors panic when prices fall. China bought more. Why would the world's second largest economy buy aggressively into a falling market? Hold that question. We're going to come back to it, because the answer connects directly to July 24th. Let's slow down for a second, because a few of these words get thrown around so often that people stop actually picturing what they mean. When we say inflation, we're really just talking about your money buying less than it used to. Imagine pushing the same grocery cart through the same store, filling it with the exact same items you bought last year, and reaching the register to find it costs $20, $30, sometimes $50 more. Nothing in the cart changed. The value of the dollars in your wallet did. Interest rates are simply the price of borrowing money, or the reward for saving it. When a central bank raises rates, it's a little like a landlord raising rent on borrowed cash. Loans get more expensive, credit cards sting a little more, but savings accounts and bonds start paying you more just for holding onto your money instead of spending it. And the Federal Reserve, the Fed, is the institution in America responsible for making that call. Its decisions ripple through mortgage rates, credit card interest, business loans, and yes, the price of gold and silver, whether you've ever thought about the Fed before in your life or not. For context, gold isn't just sitting near its highs right now, it's actually down significantly from where it was earlier this year. Back in January, gold touched an all-time high near $5,589 an ounce. By mid-July, it had fallen below $4,000, landing closer to $4,000 to $4,100. That's a drop of roughly a quarter from the peak, even though gold is still meaningfully higher than it was a year ago. So picture the scene. Gold has cooled off from its record high. Retail investors in the West are nervous, some selling, some sitting on the sidelines, wondering if the run is over. And on the other side of the planet, China's central bank just posted its biggest monthly gold purchase in almost 3 years. That's not coincidence, that's a pattern. And patterns in finance almost always mean somebody knows something the crowd hasn't priced in yet. But here's where everything changes. Over the past couple of weeks, a claim has been spreading fast across financial YouTube channels and social media. The claim goes like this. On July 24th, some of China's largest banks are expected to stop allowing ordinary retail customers to buy gold and silver on margin, meaning with borrowed money instead of cash in hand. Supporters of this theory argue that ending margin buying inside China would strip out a layer of paper trading, the kind of trading where you're betting on gold without ever holding an ounce of it. And if that layer disappears, the argument goes, the price you see quoted on Western exchanges could finally have to match the price of real physical metal changing hands in Asia. That's the theory. It's dramatic. It's exciting. And it is, as of today, unconfirmed by any official statement from the People's Bank of China, the Shanghai Gold Exchange, or any of the major banks named in these reports. So we're not going to tell you it's true. We're not going to tell you it's false either. What we're going to do is walk through what's actually verifiable, layer by layer, so you can understand exactly why this rumor caught fire in the first place, and why the underlying story is worth paying attention to, even if the specific date turns out to be nothing at all. Almost nobody noticed this next detail, but it matters more than the rumor itself. Even after buying gold for 20 consecutive months, gold still makes up less than 10% of China's total foreign reserves. Read that again. 10%. For a country holding trillions of dollars in reserves, that's a small slice. According to the World Gold Council, that leaves enormous room for China to keep buying for years, not months, without even coming close to what other major economies hold in gold as a share of reserves. This is the part most people completely miss. China isn't buying gold because of one single news event. It's buying gold because it's been trying, patiently, methodically, to reduce how dependent its financial system is on the US dollar. Analysts call this de-dollarization. Think of it like a person who's relied on one employer their entire working life, and slowly, carefully, starts building a second source of income, just in case something ever goes wrong with the first one. That's what China's central bank has been doing with gold, purchase by purchase, for almost 2 years straight. And here's a small detail that changes how the whole picture looks. This isn't some brand new idea China stumbled into this year. The buying streak actually stretches back to November of 2024, making it the longest continuous run of gold accumulation since 2015. 20 months of discipline, through rising prices and falling prices, through calm markets and chaotic ones. Most retail investors can't hold a single position for 20 months without flinching. A central bank just did, without blinking, without explaining itself, and largely without Western financial media paying close attention until the numbers got too big to ignore. Think about what that kind of patience actually requires. Not a single trader deciding on a whim to buy the dip, an entire institution, month after month, sticking to a plan regardless of what the headlines said that week. That's not speculation, that's positioning. And positioning like that usually isn't about next month's price. It's about what the world might look like a decade from now. Now here's a contradiction that should stop you in your tracks. If China is buying this much gold and has been for this long, why did the price of gold fall so hard in June? Shouldn't massive central bank buying push prices up, not down? The honest answer is that gold's price isn't set by one buyer alone. It's set by millions of traders all around the world reacting to interest rates, the strength of the dollar, and fear or confidence about the economy. And in June, several of those forces were pulling in the opposite direction of China's buying. The US dollar strengthened. Traders began pricing in a higher chance that the Federal Reserve would keep interest rates elevated for longer. And that brings us to a name you've probably already heard if you follow financial news even loosely: Kevin Warsh. Warsh became the 17th chair of the Federal Reserve in May of this year, stepping into one of the most powerful financial jobs on the planet. And just days ago, in his very first appearance before Congress, he made a promise that sent ripples through every gold and silver trading desk in the country. He said inflation would become a thing of the past. He said the Fed has no tolerance for persistently elevated inflation. Strong words, confident words, the kind of words that usually mean one thing to traders. Higher interest rates are still on the table. Here's why that detail matters so much to anyone holding gold or silver. When interest rates rise, or even when investors simply expect them to rise, gold tends to lose some of its shine. Gold doesn't pay you interest. It just sits there, quietly, waiting. So when a savings account or government bond starts offering a real, attractive return, some money that would have flowed into gold flows into those instead. That's a big part of why gold slipped below $4,000 in the same window that China was buying more of it than it had in years. But there's a twist inside the twist. Even as Warsh talked tough on inflation, he refused to say whether the Fed's next meeting, scheduled for July 28th and 29th, would actually bring a rate hike. No promises, no hints, just the phrase, "too high," repeated, without a roadmap for what happens next. Picture the boardroom inside the Fed right now. Warsh has openly criticized the way past leadership communicated policy, arguing that spelling out the future too clearly boxes the central bank into corners it later regrets. So instead of guidance, investors are getting silence, and silence in financial markets tends to get filled with speculation. Some analysts on Wall Street now believe a September hike is very much back on the table. Others argue the economy is too fragile for the Fed to squeeze any harder. Both camps are looking at the exact same data and walking away with opposite conclusions. That kind of disagreement among professionals is usually a signal that nobody, no matter how many credentials they hold, actually knows for certain what happens next. Think about what this uncertainty means for a small business owner trying to plan next year's budget, or a young couple trying to time a mortgage application. When even the people setting interest rates won't commit to a direction, everyone downstream is left guessing too. That uncertainty is exactly the kind of environment that historically pushes some investors toward assets like gold and silver, not because they're chasing a quick profit, but because they're looking for something that doesn't depend on one committee's next vote. Traders hate that kind of silence. Uncertainty is its own kind of pressure. And in the days since his testimony, tensions in the Middle East have pushed oil prices up more than 30% from their July lows, raising fresh fears that inflation could stay sticky even if the Fed wants it gone. Some market watchers are now pricing in roughly a 50% chance of a rate hike as soon as September. Now hold all of that in your mind at once. A new Fed chair promising to crush inflation, but refusing to commit to a plan. Oil prices climbing because of geopolitical conflict. Gold sitting more than a quarter below its January peak. And China, quietly, relentlessly, adding to its gold reserves for the 20th month running. This is the bigger picture almost nobody connects out loud. China's strategy was never built around a single headline date. It's been built brick by brick, ounce by ounce, for almost 2 years. The rumors swirling around July 24th, whether they turn out to be accurate or wildly overstated, are really just the latest spark landing on a pile of kindling that's been building since November of 2024, when this buying streak first began. Think about what that means for an ordinary person, not a hedge fund manager, not a Wall Street trader. Think about a retired teacher who kept some savings in gold years ago because she didn't trust the stock market to protect her after watching her parents live through the 2008 crash. Think about a small business owner who's watched his supply costs creep up every single quarter and wonders if the dollars in his business account will buy as much next year as they do today. Think about a young professional just starting to build a portfolio, trying to figure out whether gold belongs in it at all, or whether it's just a shiny distraction from stocks and real estate. Think about a truck driver who's spent the last 2 years watching diesel prices swing wildly with every headline out of the Middle East, doing quiet math in his head about whether his savings will still cover a slow month. Think about parents setting aside a little each paycheck for their kids' future, wondering whether a savings account, a government bond, or something like gold gives them the steadiest ground to stand on over the next 15 years. That third option, government bonds, deserves a quick explanation too, because it sits right at the center of this whole story. A U.S. Treasury bond is essentially a loan you give to the government, and in exchange, the government promises to pay you back with interest. For decades, that promise has been considered one of the safest in the world. But every time confidence in the dollar wavers, whether from inflation, political pressure on the Fed, or geopolitical shocks, some investors start asking a quiet, uncomfortable question. Safest compared to what? These aren't abstract questions. They're the same questions people have asked every single time trust in paper money has wavered throughout history. And history offers a pattern worth knowing, even though it never repeats in exactly the same way twice. In the 1970s, when inflation ran hot and confidence in the dollar cracked, gold went from under $40 an ounce to over $800 in less than a decade. That wasn't because one country flipped a switch on one specific date. It was because trust eroded slowly, then all at once, and gold became the place people ran to when they weren't sure what else to believe in. Nobody is saying that's guaranteed to happen again. Markets don't repeat on command. But historically, when a major economy accumulates gold aggressively while simultaneously working to reduce its dependence on a rival currency, it's rarely about short-term profit. It's about long-term positioning for a world that might look very different 10 or 20 years from now. Silver tells a similar, quieter story. Unlike gold, silver isn't just something central banks stash in vaults. It's used in solar panels, electronics, and industrial manufacturing, which means its price gets pulled by two forces at once. Fear-driven investment demand, the same forces moving gold, and real-world industrial demand tied to manufacturing and green energy. That dual identity is part of why silver has historically swung even more sharply than gold in both directions, rising faster when confidence in paper currency wavers, and falling faster when industrial demand cools. It's a detail almost nobody outside the metals world talks about, and it's part of why serious investors watch silver as closely as gold, sometimes more closely. So where does that leave the July 24th story? Here's a reality check. Even if China's banks do quietly tighten the rules around retail margin buying of gold and silver, that alone wouldn't instantly force Western exchanges to reprice everything overnight. Global gold and silver prices are still heavily influenced by trading in London and on the COMEX exchange in the United States, alongside the Shanghai Gold Exchange in China. A change to one country's retail lending rules is a real and meaningful data point. It is not, by itself, an earthquake that rewrites the entire global price of a metal traded around the clock, on every continent, every single day. What is real and worth sitting with is the ongoing conversation among analysts about the gap between paper gold and physical gold. Paper gold means contracts, futures, promises to deliver metal at a future date. Physical gold means the actual bars and coins sitting in a vault somewhere. For years, some analysts have argued that far more paper gold exists on exchanges than there is physical gold to back it, and that if enough people ever demanded real metal all at once, prices could move sharply to reflect that scarcity. Other analysts disagree, arguing the system has functioned this way for decades without breaking, and there's no reason to expect a sudden collapse now. Both sides make reasonable points. Neither side has a crystal ball, and that's exactly why this topic keeps resurfacing every time China makes a move that even hints at shaking up how gold gets bought, sold, or delivered. Here's an unexpected consequence worth sitting with. Even the possibility of tighter rules in China matters. regardless of whether it fully plays out on July 24th or 3 months later or not at all. Just the expectation that physical demand could tighten is enough to change how some traders behave today. Markets don't only react to what's already happened. They react to what people believe is coming. That's part of why a rumor, even an unconfirmed one, can move real money before a single fact has been verified. So which is it? Is July 24th a footnote that fades from the news cycle within a week, or the first domino in something bigger? Honestly, nobody watching this video, and nobody making it, can answer that with certainty yet. But there's a way to think about it that doesn't require guessing right. Here's the part most people miss entirely when they hear a dramatic claim like the one circulating about July 24th. Even if the most extreme version of the story turns out to be exaggerated, the underlying forces behind it are not imaginary. China really has bought gold for 20 consecutive months. The dollar really is being tested by a new Fed chair who hasn't yet proven he can bring inflation down without raising rates further. Oil really has surged on real geopolitical conflict. And gold really has become more volatile as all of these pressures collide at once. That combination, on its own, without any single dramatic date attached to it, is enough to explain why gold and silver have stayed at the center of financial conversations all year. So what should someone watching this actually do with all of this information? Not panic. Panic is rarely a strategy. It's usually just a reaction, and reactions tend to be expensive. Instead, understanding. Understanding that gold has historically served as one tool among many for preserving wealth during periods of currency uncertainty, not a guaranteed shortcut to instant riches. Understanding that central banks like China's tend to think in years and decades, not headlines and days. And understanding that when a story like July 24th goes viral, the healthiest response isn't to assume it's either completely true or completely fake. It's to ask what's actually been confirmed, what hasn't, and what the underlying trend has already been showing you for months. Because here's the powerful realization underneath all of this. The story was never really about one single date on a calendar. July 24th, whatever does or doesn't happen on it, is just one more data point in a much longer story that started long before this month and will almost certainly continue long after it. China's gold buying didn't begin because of a rumor, and it won't end because of one either. The real story is the 20-month pattern, the shrinking share of gold in China's reserves that leaves room to keep buying, the new Fed chair still finding his footing, and a world where trust in paper currency is being quietly, constantly renegotiated, ounce by ounce, decision by decision. Markets often react to headlines. But the investors who tend to do best over time are usually the ones paying attention to the pattern underneath the headline, not just the headline itself. Think back to that retired teacher, that small business owner, that young professional building a first portfolio. None of them need to correctly predict what happens on July 24th to make a sound decision about their own savings. What they need is exactly what you've just walked through. An understanding of why China has been buying, why the Fed's silence matters, why gold fell even as a major buyer kept accumulating, and why a single viral claim online is worth investigating, not worshiping and not dismissing. That's the real shift this story offers if you let it. Not fear, not blind excitement, just a clearer set of eyes the next time a dramatic headline about gold, silver, China, or the Fed lands in your feed. You'll know what questions to ask. You'll know which numbers are confirmed and which are still rumors. And that, far more than any single date on a calendar, is what actually protects a person's financial future over time. Whatever July 24th ends up bringing, watch the pattern, not just the date. That's where the real story about gold's price has been hiding in plain sight all along. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe to Money Insights and like this video. More powerful financial insights are coming next.